the regular season is finally over. We're looking forward to the next weekend's playoff games, but let's touch base on what happened this past weekend.
Very good final weekend in the NFL season.
Minus my game. We'll hit that one first. Let's talk about the Tampa Bay Atlanta game. Atlanta just looked incredibly flat-footed.
I agree.
They looked like they really didn't care.
It looked like they were looking ahead to the playoffs, which
Can you blame them?
I can't blame them for looking ahead to the playoffs and looking against looking over a very weak Tampa opponent, in my opinion. I don't understand why Mike Smith played the starters the whole game.
I do, just simply because they want to get game reps, and you can't, as much practice as you go through, especially with the bye week.
It's not game speed.
It's not game speed.
I agree with you there.
So
I just think
that I can understand that, but at the same time,
yeah,
it happens.
I think it's a big risk reward thing. I know the Jonathan Abraham injury looked a lot worse than we later found out to be. The Dunta Robinson injury is the same thing. I just think it could have gone a lot worse than it really did for the Falcons.
It's a good thing they've got 2 weeks to rest up. Both Abraham with the ankle issue and Robinson with the head injury. Both have 2 weeks to rest up before their next game. 22-17 final. Excuse me. Moving on, Baltimore lost another game. I mean, again, they were already locked into the playoffs, so they probably didn't really care very much. Cincinnati was in.
It seems like Baltimore really needed this game to have momentum. Baltimore has absolutely no momentum going into the playoffs. They are on one of the coldest of cold streaks for any of the NFL teams, and
that's not what you want going into.
Absolutely not.
The playoffs.
You want to be at least mediocre, hot cold streak, and it'd be awesome if you go in with 2 or 3 wins in a row under your belt, which is what the Bengals and the Colts are kind of doing. And it's pretty much the opposite of what the Ravens and the Texans are doing. Ray Lewis, will he be back for this game? I know he announced his retirement today.
He will be. He will be back for the game. But like you said, this is his last season in the NFL. But he was activated last week, so he could be on the playoff roster.
Well, we'll see how they do. That's a team that ranks number 22 against the run, which is not something a Ravens defense is known for.
Moving on to the next game, Buffalo Bills win a barn burner, 28-9 against the New York Jets. After the game, Ken Gailey was relieved of his duties as head coach. Rex Ryan actually keeps his head coaching job, but Mike Tannenbaum, the general manager for the Jets, has been fired. I really can't blame the ownership group for the Jets for getting rid of the GM.
I agree.
Let's look at their past drafting abilities and see
they haven't done well with it.
And them bringing in Tebow, that was dumb. Yeah, in my opinion, that was just bringing in money.
It's a really big farce up there, New Jersey, New York. What they did with the Tebow trade and their draft picks, I'm not surprised that Rex Ryan still has a job. It's like I said, he was without his best offensive player and his best defensive player pretty much this whole year. I think he can use it as a scapegoat. Also, the GM firing, I think, helped him retain his job. He took the Jets to back-to-back AFC championships. Yep. He's done some good up there. It kind of remains to be seen if Mark Sanchez is going to remain their starting quarterback. I couldn't see, unless they get a good trade offer, they're not going to release him. I think he's owed $8 or $9 million next year, so unless they get a decent trade offer, he'll be their starting quarterback, but Tebow is definitely gone.
I really don't see Mark Sanchez being a quarterback for them next year, honestly. I really think that this season, whether it be the Jets trading with the new general manager, trading up with Mark Sanchez to get it.
I see that as a very valuable, because Mark Sanchez is not a bad quarterback, but I think his run in New York is up.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on, Indianapolis, Andrew Luck and the Colts continue their playoff push. They're in the playoffs regardless, and they just wanted to get that extra momentum going. Beat a division opponent in the Houston Texans, 28-16 final score.
Chuck Pagano's first game back from week 3, I believe.
And they just looked solid from special teams to offense, everything.
Very solid team.
They're looking like they could make some noise in the playoffs.
I would arguably say the 2 bottom seeds for next week's games are the better than their top seeded opponents
in the AFC. Because you have to understand, the NFC is a few years back, the NFC was the little brother of the NFL. Suddenly it's turned because the NFC the past couple of years has turned out just gotten much better than their counterparts in the AFC.
But yeah, the Colts are right where you want to be going into the playoffs. They're hot. They're one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. They're pretty much the opposite of the Ravens and the Texans now.
And they're facing off against a downtrodden Baltimore team right in the first round of the playoffs. Moving on, Giants win against the Eagles with Mike Vick as starting quarterback. Mike Vick played his last down. Andy Reid has been fired by the Philadelphia Eagles after 14 seasons with the team. We heard today that he was being interviewed by Kansas City and the Arizona Cardinals. And we'll hit on those two teams losing their coaches too. We haven't really mentioned it yet, but we'll hit on that shortly. 42-7. Eli Manning has had probably one of the worst 6-game stretches that I can remember him having, and he just went off in this game. 5 touchdowns.
Just took out all of his anger, and he showed the capabilities of the quarterback that he is in this game. I mean, he's a 2-time Super Bowl winner. He didn't make the playoffs this year. Focus on next year. I mean,
we are going to have a brand new Super Bowl champion as opposed to
we'll have a repeat.
Chicago Bears win a close one against the Detroit Lions. The Bears did what they were supposed to do. They had to win. They had to beat the Lions to actually get into the playoffs. But Minnesota actually beat Green Bay, which we'll touch on here in a little bit. One of the weirdest firings of the week, in my opinion. I really don't understand Chicago dumping Lovie Smith.
I agree.
I think it was probably one of the dumbest moves. If anything, you need to help him find a offensive coordinator. That's the biggest
and an
issue.
Offensive line in that.
I mean, that's because he's had 4 offensive coordinators in the past 6 years. I think it's tough to keep an offense on there.
And they won 10 games this year. It's not like they did bad. They had a bad streak at the end of the season. Middle of the end of the season, they had a bad streak where they were losing games by significant margins. But it's a 10-win season regardless, and a 10-win season in the NFL is not too shabby. I know they didn't make the playoffs, and I know they really didn't get to where they want to be, but for the fact that Lovie Smith gets fired, I honestly do not understand that firing, and I think that is a terrific position for any head coach out there that's looking for a job.
Oh, absolutely.
As much as I don't like Jay Cutler,
coveted.
as much as I don't like Jay Cutler, that's a ready-made team right there, pretty much.
It's a ready-made team. The defense is probably it's getting older. It's not the youngest defense in the league, but the thing about it is Chicago is such a sports-ridden town that people are so focused on it that as opposed to Southern teams who are more focused on their college teams.
I agree.
I think Chicago's more focused on their pro team, and they are just. But they're also, when they do well, they're going to get paid better. Moving on, Carolina wins against the Saints. It was a nothing game. 44-38 final score. Pittsburgh wins in their finale to go 8-8 for the season. Against the Cleveland Browns team who fired Pat Shurmur and the general manager, correct?
Yes, they fired general manager and coach. I was listening this morning to The Rude Awakening, and Perry Laurentino said it best. He said, the Steelers are like that old dog that you've had in your family for 20 years. It's way, way past its prime, and you almost just want to take it out back and shoot it and put it out of its misery rather than leaving it wailing in the house.
I actually heard an interview the other day with a ex-NFL player that said that he thinks that the Cleveland Browns are an up-and-coming team and will make the playoffs next season.
I can see that with Brandon Whedon and Trent Richardson. I mean, that's a really
if
good,
healthy. And the defense is young. They've got a good front seven,
talented offense. Yeah, I could definitely see that. As old as the Ravens defense is going to get, as old as the whole entire Steelers team is, I could definitely see that.
Tennessee wins against Jacksonville, clinching the number 1 overall pick. No, wait, Kansas City's got the number 1 pick. 38-20 final score. Another nothing game.
Yeah, another game that really doesn't matter. They're pretty much playing for draft position.
And Mike Mularkey for the Jacksonville Jaguars actually kept his job as of right now.
So far, yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna see what type of Jacksonville did fire their GM. Their GM is out. From what I hear, when the new GM is announced and gets hired, he will be doing assessment of the coaching jobs. And so Mike Mularkey's job isn't technically safe at the moment, but he is employed as of right now.
San Francisco wins against the Cardinals 27-13. San Francisco just needed this to lock up the number 2 seed. I mean, it's really they needed this thing bad.
I agree. Playing at home is going to be a huge advantage for the 49ers.
Up until they might have to go to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Denver wins another big one to lock up the number 2 seed.
11 in a row?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they also beat the Kansas City Chiefs.
Hey, win to win.
38-3 final score. Peyton had a really, really solid game again. San Diego wins a really close one, 24-21. Terrell Pryor actually had
three touchdowns.
Decent game.
Mm-hmm. 2 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown.
You can't. I mean, do you think he's the future for the Raiders?
I think he is the quarterback of the foreseeable future. I don't know if he's their franchise guy. I don't know if he's one of those guys they're going to invest a ton of money in. But I would say he has a better future than Carson Palmer. Obviously, it's a longer future, and he has a better future than Matt Leinart.
Anybody should have a better future than Matt Leinart.
I don't see why you wouldn't start him as for now. Obviously, if there's another quarterback prospect out there that you can go get and bring in, obviously do that. But as of right now, he's doing a decent job for Oakland, at least in the one game I've seen him play.
28-0 final score. New England is beat up on Miami.
I was surprised.
Were you really?
I was. The Dolphins usually give the Patriots a harder time late in December. They just, for some reason, the Dolphins give the Patriots all they can handle late in December. You know, those late regular season games. But this was definitely not one of them.
Moving on, Seattle wins 20-13. In another, all of these games are divisional, which is what Roger Goodell wanted.
They did a terrific job
this season.
Yeah.
Because as opposed to a few seasons ago, it was a little bit different. Where you're like, okay, yeah, this didn't really mean anything.
It unfolded the correct way that it needed to unfold this year.
But Russell Wilson, we've got 3 rookie quarterbacks going in the NFL playoffs this season. So
2 of them will face each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a really interesting playoffs. Green Bay loses a heartbreaker to Minnesota, 37-34.
Yep.
Adrian Peterson comes 8 yards shy of
sickening.
Breaking Eric Dickerson's record.
That is sickening.
And you have to think, God, that was just so close for him. And he's going to say up and down that we made the playoffs. That's all that matters to me. But that record in the back of that.
Absolutely.
Especially
he said as of much a week or 2 ago, they asked him, they said, are you going after Eric Dickerson's record? And he said, absolutely, I'm going after that record.
But he becomes the number 2 overall rushing record behind Eric Dickerson.
Only the 6th running back of all time.
Yep.
To
past 2,000
yards. 2,000.
Yeah.
2,000 yards. 6,000.
And finally, the Sunday night game, the poor game for your Dallas Cowboys. Romo continues to just underwhelm in the spotlight.
Yeah, it's time in and time out. We have the same story. He just doesn't have it in the big games. Just doesn't have the poise. Just doesn't have the smarts. The 3 interceptions that he threw were not good throws. All 3 of them were stupid, bonehead, rush, not thinking passes.
Tell us how you really feel, bro.
Just aggravating, just completely aggravating. We have to look at offensive line in the draft, and as much as Romo has blown at the big games, what's option B for us, honestly?
True, and Jason Garrett, as of right now, still has his job. Let's also run through a list. Ken Wisenhunt of the Arizona Cardinals is looking for a job. Romeo Crennel, Kansas City Chiefs, is out. North Turner of San Diego Chargers, head coach, is fired.
We did also one thing I don't think we touched on last week. Sean Payton signed an extension with the Saints. I believe he'll be the highest paid coach in the NFL.
Yep.
So they signed him up. Oh, and Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator for the St. Louis Rams, is suspended. He is out.
He is out.
He is definitely out in St. Louis.
But that's it for our Week 17 recap. We're about to move on to the playoffs, and it'll be a really, really interesting week. But for Bryce, and my name's Billy, and we'll see you guys next week.